Okay, so we're switching the rear cover on the transmission. First thing you're going to do is remove the drain plug from your old transmission. Or, no, I guess with your old transmission, hopefully you've drained it already, but if you haven't, remove the drain plug, drain it, okay? Then you're going to take this bolt out here. It's a keeper. Clean the threads because they've got Loctite on them. Okay, it's just kind of dried. And then you're going to take that one out. You're going to come around to this side. You're going to take this one out. It's the same thing as the other side. You're going to take this one out. Okay. Then you're going to take out your reverse sensor. Okay. This is what tells you when your car's in reverse. Then you're going to take out this little one here at the top. Okay. It's like the bottom ones, or it's for the side ones. It's a keeper nut. Okay. So at this point you should have a little pile like this. Then you have 12 of these. These are 14 mils. Just take them out. You can use an impact gun to take them out if you want. But nothing gets put back in with an impact gun, just FYI. So you should have a bunch of those. Okay, 12 of them in total. Anything, see this dot here? Anything below this, towards the bell housing, don't take out. So don't take that out. On the other side there's this one here. And yeah, basically the only one you take out on this side is your drain. Okay? Then you're going to come up here and you're going to take this out. This is a 36 mil bolt. You need to use an impact gun to take this out. Okay, and the reason for that is there are these little grooves. Okay, when you replace this, which you can only buy at a dealership right now, and I'm sorry I don't have the part number, I looked in the catalog and I can't find it, but a dealership can sell them to you because it's advised when replacing this to replace this. Okay, when you tighten when you put your new one on, okay, these are going to line, these won't be there, okay, this will just be completely round. But you have these grooves right here, and you need to take a flat blade screwdriver and a hammer, and when this is tightened down, wherever it is, wherever these grooves are, you take the flat blade and you smash it in with the hammer, causing this to collapse, okay, and that causes it to have a mechanical seal against this, okay. So now your pile should look something like this. Take this out, okay? Just grab it. I put my palm, center of my palm, right on there, grab and lift up. It comes right out. So now your pile should look something like that. And then you have to remove the pin from here, which holds that keeper on. That has to come out, and then you'll be able to slide past this roller bearing set right here. Oh, and to separate this, because there is a silicone adhesive right here, to separate these two, take two flat pry bars, push them against each other, and it will cause them to separate, which I can't do from here, but cause them to separate, and it will pop and lift off, exposing your transmission. Okay, something to note, you have to take a razor blade and clean all of this blue stuff off and make sure it's gone. Okay, that's your old sealant. Then you need to buy a tube of Permatex blue sealant. Okay, take a very thin bead, very, very thin. We're talking like probably the smallest one on the nozzle. And you go on the inside of everything, okay? And you just go around the inside. All the way around, okay? You don't need to go on the outside, that's just going to cause a mess. Okay, and you got your dowel pins here and here. Those are how you line it up there, and that's why you need to use the pry bar, because it'll be stuck on this and on these. And then down here you have your transmission filter, which I can't remove right now because I've only got one hand. This is going to be covered in little tiny metal filings, and it's going to be gray. Just take a pair of tweezers or pliers, pull it out, give it a wipe with a shop cloth, and then it'll be basically brand new. It's just a magnet disc, okay? And then when you put everything back together, make sure, because those keepers on the sides, they poke into this. This is your reverse mechanism right here, okay? Make sure that when you take the lid off that this has not popped out, okay? It literally just does that. So make sure that it's popped, like it's sitting in its groove right there. That these little brass keepers right here and right here are in place. Okay? And then make sure that there's no excessive wear on here or here. As you can see a little bit, there's like a little scratch there. That's a little bit of galling. On the transmission, on the donor transmission assembly, it should be basically spotless on the inside, but take a shop cloth and wipe off these roller bearings and around where the roller bearing meets their container, okay? And then just give a nice light wipe against any of these exposed surfaces here, right here. And then that should be basically it. If you are not careful when you put your prop shaft back, prop coupler back in, or spline drive coupler, if you're not careful when you put it back in, you will have to buy a new oil seal, okay? And I have never had to replace one, I never want to replace one, so just make sure that you are very careful when you do that, okay? There is a little bit of play in here, but this seal here is what you're concerned about. Okay, you don't want that damaged because it seats against there, so make sure you give that a wipe, because this part here spins at output RPM, which is I think it goes up to like 14,000 RPM or something like that. Then when you put it back together, like you're putting the new casing on, you're going to hear a couple of clicks, and what those clicks are is this right here. On the other side of this is that roller ball assembly that you just cleaned. It's sitting on the groove, and you want that groove cleaned. Then it'll be seated. You can put everything back in the exact way it came out. These are tapered. You'll notice here how that hole is kind of off center. When you put these back in, you're going to be fighting against the tension of that. They're kind of a bitch to get back in and start threading, but that's how you do it. And once you put it back in, save your fluid from the transmission. You can take the fluid that you drain out of the one in the car right now and put it into the transmission you'll be putting into the car. The fluid's perfectly fine, it won't be an issue. The transmission that was shipped to you was drained of its fluid, but it was not cleaned, okay? It was not flushed, I don't know anybody that believes in transmission flushing anymore. Which is a chemical stripping of the inside of the transmission, resulting in all of the parts being dry and giving them the chance to rust. And because of that, I don't know anybody. The pros of transmission flushing don't outweigh the cons of it. So there is still lube on those parts. That's very important to remember when you're taking off the donor, or you're putting on the donor casing, that the parts that on your transmission, the one that you're putting the donor casing onto, the parts where all of these guides slip onto and everything, make sure that they've got like a little bit of lubricant on them. Even if you just take some transmission oil and give them a wipe, that prevents them from dry fitting. And if they dry fit, you can gull them and make them not run as smoothly as they should, because they are the support braces and everything for the transmission assembly. So just make sure that those things are taken care of. There are absolutely no torque specs for the transmission. Magna refuses to give them to me. Hyundai no longer certifies their technicians to work on manual transmissions. They're just a pull and replace. So they won't give them to me. I've contacted WEA, and they won't give them to me. WEA is the actual producer in Korea for the transmission. Magna is the company that designed it, and Hyundai is the one who sells it. So none of them will give me the torque specs to anything on the transmission. So on the first bolt of everything, you can use a digital torque gauge to remember the torque required to pull it off, like to remove it, and that's how you can kind of backwards do it. But I sold you the only transmission that was never taken apart, so I don't have one that I can do that with to find out torque specs. So once it's back in and back together, make sure that this seats down. Okay, there should be barely any gap there. I don't advise reusing this, and a dealership will not have them in stock, just so you know. So, but once they're tightened down all the way, they will pretty much line back up with wherever those notches are. And then you're like, that's why I don't recommend reusing them. So this is your output centering pin. It connects to your drive shaft. Make sure there's a little bit of grease on it, not lube, but grease, just to make sure that it doesn't dry fit or rust. Make sure that the threads down here, when you're torquing everything down, are clean and dry. They'll probably get a little bit of oil on them. And then put this pin back in with the linkage retainer pin back in. Hook everything back up, and then off you go. Just fill it full of fluid again, which is I think. Well, you can use that as a fill port, but I mean, you can use that as a fill port too. So whatever you choose to use as a fill port, use it. So there you go. It's pretty much, you can swap the casings in about half an hour-ish if you got a good impact gun, and you take your time. So there you go.